Have you ever wondered where your phone's battery, your favorite chocolate, or even the diamonds in a jewelry store come from? A huge chunk of these resources are from Africa, a continent bursting with natural wealth. We're talking about everything from cobalt and coltan for our gadgets to cocoa and gold. But here's the big question. With all this incredible wealth being exported, who is actually getting rich? It's a complex picture. For decades, the story has often been one of foreign companies and a small local elite benefiting. Well, many communities see little of the profit, but things are starting to change. Now, new policies, local entrepreneurs, and a rising generation are demanding a fairer deal. What does this fair share look like? And how can we support it? Let's dive deeper into this in our next video. Subscribe to learn more about the real story of Africa's resources. Africa, a continent of immense beauty, vibrant cultures, and staggering natural wealth. We're talking about gold, diamonds, oil, cobalt, coltan, the very building blocks of our modern world. Your smartphone, your electric car, the jewelry you wear, chances are a piece of Africa is in it. But have you ever stopped to ask the really important question? With all this incredible wealth being pulled from the ground, who is actually getting rich? The answer is a lot more complicated, and frankly, more shocking than you might think. Let's dig in. For centuries, Africa's story has been intertwined with its resources. First, it was the tragic trade of human lives. Then came the colonial scramble for rubber, ivory, and minerals. Today, the players may have changed, but the game often looks surprisingly similar. We see massive international corporations, backed by global finance, setting up shop across the continent. They bring in heavy machinery, advanced technology, and create large-scale mining and drilling operations. On the surface, this looks like progress, right? Jobs, infrastructure, economic development, and in some cases, it is. But we have to look closer at the numbers. Let's take a country rich in cobalt, a critical component for the batteries in our electric vehicles and electronics. A multinational corporation might come in and strike a deal. They agree to pay the government a certain percentage in royalties and taxes for the right to mine. They might build a road or a school as part of the deal, which looks great for public relations. They extract billions of dollars worth of cobalt. But after they deduct their operational costs, their high-paid expatriate salaries, their equipment depreciation, and use complex accounting strategies like transfer pricing to shift profits to low-tax jurisdictions. The amount of money that actually stays in the host country can be shockingly small. Sometimes it's just a tiny fraction of the total value of the resource extracted. So, where does the money go? A huge chunk goes directly to the shareholders of these multinational corporations, who are often located thousands of miles away in places like London, New York, or Beijing. It goes to the banks that finance these massive projects. It goes to the shipping companies, the insurance firms, and the commodity traders in global financial hubs. A significant portion of the wealth generated from African soil never even touches the lives of the people living on that soil. And what about the share that does stay in Africa? Well, this is where another part of the problem comes into play: governance. In some nations, the revenue that does flow to the government doesn't always make it to the people. Corruption can act like a giant leak in the system. Money that should be funding hospitals, schools, and clean water projects can end up in offshore bank accounts or funding lavish lifestyles for a small, connected elite. This creates a devastating paradox. A country can be incredibly rich in natural resources, yet its population remains stuck in poverty. This is often called the resource curse, where mineral wealth, instead of being a blessing, becomes a source of conflict, corruption, and economic stagnation. It's easy to feel powerless in the face of such a massive global system, but it's not a hopeless situation. There's a growing movement across Africa led by activists, journalists, and everyday citizens who are demanding transparency and accountability. They are fighting for fairer contracts, for laws that ensure a greater share of the profit stays in their countries, and for governments that use that money for the benefit of all citizens, not just a few. Think about the Publish What You Pay campaign, which pushes for oil, gas, and mining companies to disclose the payments they make to governments. This kind of transparency makes it much harder for corruption to hide in the shadows. We are also seeing a shift in how African leaders approach these deals. More and more, they are demanding not just royalties, but equity stakes in projects. They are pushing for beneficiation, which is a fancy word for processing the raw materials locally instead of just shipping them out as unprocessed dirt. Think about it. Instead of just exporting raw cocoa beans, why not make and export the finished chocolate? Instead of exporting raw diamonds, why not cut and polish them locally? This creates more skilled jobs, develops new industries, and captures a much larger slice of the final value chain right there on the continent. Countries like Botswana have had incredible success with this model in their diamond industry, transforming from one of the poorest countries in the world to an upper-middle-income nation. It proves that the resource curse is not inevitable. But the responsibility doesn't just lie with African governments and activists. We, as global consumers, have a role to play. Our demand for cheap electronics, fast fashion, and constant upgrades fuels this entire system. When we buy a new smartphone, are we asking where the tin tungsten and tantalum inside it came from? Are we supporting companies that are committed to ethical sourcing and transparent supply chains? The concept of conflict minerals gained traction because consumers started to care. We demanded to know that our purchases weren't funding wars. We can apply that same pressure across the board. By making conscious choices, we send a powerful message to corporations that we value people and the planet over just a low price tag. Furthermore, international governments and financial institutions have a huge influence. They can support fair contract negotiations, help fight illicit financial flows, and refuse to do business with corrupt regimes. They can create and enforce regulations that hold their own multinational companies accountable for their actions abroad. This isn't about charity. It's about creating a more just and stable global economic system that benefits everyone. When Africa prospers, the entire world benefits from a more stable, innovative, and dynamic partner on the global stage. The story of Africa's resources is not yet fully written. It's a story of exploitation, yes, but it's also a story of incredible resilience, ingenuity, and a rising demand for justice. The next chapter is being shaped right now, in boardrooms in London, in government offices in Kinshasa, in mining communities in Zambia, and in the choices we make every day. By understanding who profits from Africa's wealth, we can start to support a future where the primary beneficiaries are the African people themselves. It's a future where natural wealth finally translates into national well-being. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this topic as important as I do, please hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives, and share this video to help spread awareness. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments below. See you next time.